Hello, everyone, and welcome to the movie Changeup Disney Plus weekly review, where every week me, Joseph Fricke, and my co-host Tristan Mayer over there, kind of break down what was released on Disney Plus this week. Our kind of main target audience, our goal, the people we're trying to reach. It's people who have Disney Plus for their kids, for their family, or maybe you got Disney Plus because you wanted to watch a Marvel show, but there's no Marvel shows on right now. Or maybe you got it to watch Mandalorian, but there's no Star. Well, I guess there is Bad Batch, but maybe you're just not into Bad Batch, and you're like, I have Disney Plus. I don't know what to watch. What should I be watching? That's kind of what this show is for. We tell you what you should watch and what you can kind of just skip. We got some fun topics to talk about today. But Tristan, what were your thoughts on Disney Plus this week?
Pretty good week, honestly. I thought last week we had a bit of an off week. We weren't quite sure what to even cover on the episode, but I found a slightly hidden gem, at least for me, that I really enjoyed a lot. I'm excited to talk about it. And Bad Batch, the flagship show of Disney Plus for at least the next 2 weeks, really delivered on that too. So I had a good week on Disney Plus this week.
Yeah, I agree. I looked at their upcoming releases on Disney Plus, and outside of Marvel's What If that we will talk about later, it seems like there's really not a whole lot going to be dropping on Disney Plus. So I don't know how long these episodes are going to be, because even like the smaller stuff that it was just like basically all the things they were announcing they were dropping are just like old shows and old movies that they're adding to Disney Plus. Like, oh, we're putting on Beverly Chihuahuas or Beverly Hills Chihuahua 2. I'm like, we're not going to review that because you know what that.
Yeah,
You can watch a trailer and you know what you're getting with that.
I've seen that one too many times, Joe. I don't need to watch it more than once.
I've have seen zero of the Beverly Hills Chihuahua movies, and I think it's going to remain that way. But without further ado, are you ready to kick off our first review of the Bad Batch
I'm very
episode?
ready.
Episode. I'm not exactly sure what it's titled because the Disney Plus, like episode titles on Disney Plus, it called it the finale, season one finale part one or something like that. But then the actual episode was called Return to Kamino. So I'm just gonna say it's Return to Kamino.
That makes sense. They did return to Kamino. That
Yeah.
was kind of the flagship, like the whole premise of the episode. So I think that fits. I'm scrolling through Disney Plus right now to get to it, and it does say Return to Kamino.
Okay.
So I'm gonna assume that's the name of it. Episode
Before
15 of season one.
before it was called like finale part one. So which doesn't really make sense because I would argue that this would be part two and last week's episode was part one. But that's just me.
Yeah, it's really. I like that we're essentially gonna get like a three-peat here. We're gonna get a story that's like
Yeah.
an arc. And a throwback to Clone Wars. I guess we got a couple of arcs in Bad Batch, but not a ton. So it's cool to like a three-episode arc to end the season here.
Yeah, it's I really like it. It's a really kind of an interesting episode. I felt like a lot of shades of previous Star Wars. Definitely, a lot of shades of the like Vader moment of like join me and together we can rule the
Mm-hmm.
galaxy. Of Crosshair talking with Hunter of like, hey, we could like work together again.
Yeah, a lot of Star Wars. The music, of course, was very Star Wars. It all felt like a climactic moment. And of course, we're going to talk about the fate of Kamino at the end of the
Yeah.
episode. But I think that this feels like a monumental kind of moment for Star Wars this episode, and I think it helps that the music and everything comes together, and it all feels like Star Wars the entire way through. But yeah, I had a good time. It was fun action. I liked the team dynamic. I liked seeing Omega kind of like taking a lead rather than just being like the one around, or the one causing the problems, or the one to be saved. Especially with Hunter gone, she's kind of like defaulted to being the leader of the group essentially. So I'm
Yeah.
curious to see what her role is going to be as she
Yeah.
matures and gets older. I thought the action
Yeah.
was really good, some good crosshair twists, but yeah, I had a good time with the finale, the part one of the finale. I
Yeah.
can't wait for the rest of it.
I'm still saying part two, but yeah, it kind of feels like she's more like the moral compass of the group. Of they're all like, oh, these are the orders, and she's like, yeah, but that's not the right thing to do.
Hmm.
And I really like that. There was definitely one of the things I've noticed is the creators of Star Wars, like the people that have been there a while that are working on the animated shows. You could definitely tell that Last Jedi is their favorite of the sequel trilogy because that's the movie I see that they like borrow like visual influences the most. Like I think in the opening, like the season 7 episode 1, there's a moment of Anakin facing off against uh some separatists, and the shot is identical to Luke facing off against the First Order in the Last Jedi. And there's another moment that I feel like they just drew over in from the Last Jedi, and that's one of the final moments with Admiral Rampart looking down on Kamino. Looked like an identical shot to Kylo Ren looking down on Luke as he ordered his troops to fire on Luke.
Yeah, and I noticed in that scene too the Tarkin cameo of the episode, and he has a line that I would swear was ripped out of New Hope. Like I wouldn't be surprised
Oh,
if they literally like pulled the line from the audio files
yeah,
of New Hope and just play it in the
yeah.
episode.
You may fire when ready. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, I heard that, and I'm like, that's. I mean, I heard it there, and it sounds exactly the same as in Rogue One. So I don't know if it's the same audio file in all three things, but
We got them to do one take, and we're using it for decades. 35 years later, we're using the same take of the one line.
yeah, yeah. It's kind of interesting how, looking at it now with like the cloning and stuff. How much I wonder this movie is going to affect people's viewing of the sequel trilogy, and especially Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah, I think the cloning storyline is clearly something that Filoni's interested in because he's been teasing it out in multiple shows at this point, and
Yeah,
you got a good amount of it in Mandalorian, and it's been pretty prominent, at least in a few episodes here in Bad Batch, more than I thought it would ever be.
yeah,
So I definitely think that's something he's leaning towards. I don't think he would just throw out these breadcrumbs to just let somebody else tell it.
yeah,
I think he's going to eventually want to answer that question, whether it's in a Bad Batch season or whether it's in Mandalorian or whether he's able to magically kind of bridge all of these shows together since he's kind of a creative head, whether
yeah.
they call him that or not at Disney Plus. So I'm
Yeah,
really
he's like
excited to
a
see where they're going to go with that plot because they're obviously doing something with it at this point.
Yeah, his title at Lucasfilm is like Executive Vice President of Creative or something like that. He's definitely very high up in the creative process. And like they say, the best writing is like don't give the people four, give them like 2+2 and let them figure it out on their own. So I think it'd be kind of interesting if he gave us like a 2 in Bad Batch. He gave us a 2 in Mandalorian. He gave us a 2 in Ahsoka. He gave us a 2 in Book of Boba Fett. And then we were like fans who've watched all of them could look it together and be like, oh, it's 8, and then like it kind of makes sense, and we can kind of piece together uh, more of the cloning aspects of Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah, I like to look at the mysteries in Star Wars the same way I look at like George R. R. Martin's way of revealing
Mm,
mysteries in Song of Ice and Fire / Game of Thrones, at least
mm,
until the final season, because he had this philosophy of like this three-stage reveal of like I'm gonna sprinkle little tiny things in at the first stage. So like if you're really paying attention, you're like desperately following the lore, you can pick it up and have that, and like ahead of time what's gonna happen. And then stage two, you get like a little more on that. So if you're following it, you're paying attention, but you're not super into the lore, you're gonna start picking up and saying, hey, maybe something's up with this storyline here. Something's not quite right. And then of course the third stage reveal is when he just opens up the salt shaker and pours the thing right on there
mm,
because you
mm,
just get like the whole reveal out. And if you've been paying attention, it's obvious, but if you're not, you're thrown for the loop. So I
yeah,
think he's going for a similar thing here. A little bit of sprinkle in Mandalorian, a little bit of sprinkle in Bad Batch, maybe some in Book of Boba Fett, maybe some in Ahsoka, and slowly but surely get into that answer. So I'm liking the slow build. I'm glad they didn't just be like, here's an episode of Bad Batch where we explain everything.
mm.
It's nice to get that slow build mystery.
Yeah, definitely for sure. One of the other things I wanted to talk about was the kind of dynamic between Crosshair and Hunter and their whole back and forth exchange, and kind of like any predictions you can get from that. Like, and it's one thing I did want to touch on real quick before we get to that is you could definitely tell that the Empire does not care about Crosshair, because there's a moment where Admiral Rampart, when the only people left on Kamino are the Bad Batch crew plus Crosshair, Admiral Rampart tells um, Tarkin like we all essential personnel have left Kamino.
Yeah, there's a similar scene too where he's talking to one of his clone troopers and he's saying like, I don't trust this Crosshair guy, I don't trust his clone friends, and he
Mm,
says, well, if his plans are wrong, they'll all be dead, so who cares?
yeah,
And I think you get the sense that the Empire is using Crosshair, and Crosshair has this misplaced loyalty that adds to the tragedy of the
mm,
ending of the episode, where you can tell
mm,
that Crosshair believes in the Empire, but the Empire does not believe
yeah,
in Crosshair.
yeah. Yeah, but with Crosshair's whole thing of basically, um, he tells Hunter's like, "Oh, if you come with us, we can take your chip out and everything, and you'll see like you're in the wrong." Essentially, Crosshair's like, "Oh, my chip was taken out like long ago," and Hunter was like, "When?" And Crosshair's like, "It doesn't matter." And so, one of the things I wanted to ask you: do you think his chip was actually taken out? Do you think if it wasn't, do you think he's lying, or do you think the Empire was lying to him?
I think it was definitely taken out because you can see the scar kind of on the back of his
Yeah,
head. I think Hunter makes a point to like check his head after he knocks him
yeah,
out with the stun,
yeah,
and he has like a surgery type scar, of
Well,
course, he
I
got burned
know.
in the previous episodes, but
Yeah, yeah. He has the scar from like when they torched him with that rocket, and I wonder if that like is when it was kind of taken out because it was basically destroyed.
yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like we had that arc in the earlier in the season when Crosshair was like on the verge of death and he was saved by the Empire essentially. So I'm wondering if that was the point where his ship was moved, or if he didn't have one at all. Like I know he said the "good soldiers follow orders" line at the in the premiere, but that could have just been a red herring essentially. Like he could have just
Yeah,
not had the ship from the start.
yeah, and so we're getting a lot of Vader out of uh, out of Crosshair. Do you think that's kind of a foretelling of what his arc is gonna be? Is he's gonna and it's gonna be kind of a general like 1-to-1 thing if basically he's gonna sacrifice himself and die for the Bad Batch, or do you think it's gonna be kind of a bait and switch where you think that's the direction it's going, and he actually stays evil the whole time? Or do you think it's gonna be like we kind of see like what happens when you do come back from the dark side and have to live with that?
I think the fact that the Bad Batch rescued him this week and like brought them with them is gonna, assuming that they get off the, I don't even know what the resolution of this is gonna be, because clearly they're stuck in a pretty precarious situation. But I think if they're gonna be together going forward into season two, then I think there's gonna be a redemption arc. But I don't imagine Crosshair making it out of the next episode. I think the most likely arc is the Vader thing. I think Star Wars loves their parallels. You know, it's like poetry; it rhymes. So you have the Anakin arc, you have the Crosshair arc, and it all kind of feels thematically connected to each other. And Crosshair, a lot of those lines you mentioned, the Anakin parallels, and to when he kind of proposed to Luke to join the dark side. But I also thought there were some Revenge of the Sith parallels. He has this line of like, "Don't make me your enemy," and then Hunter says, Crosshair, we never were your enemy, and I think that definitely calls back to Anakin's cheesier line from Revenge of the Sith when he says, "Look, if you're not with me, you're my enemy," and he has that very black and white look, and Obi-Wan's there to say like, "I'm your brother, Anakin. I'm not your enemy," and you have those two warring, uh, brotherly war bonds. You know, like two
Yeah.
brothers in arms who are coming face to face with these conflicts of loyalty. So I think there's definitely an intentional parallel there, and I think they're gonna follow through on it.
Yeah, definitely. That's kind of what I think. I just don't see. I think if Crosshair does stay good and he's in season two, it's like like a kind of a redemption arc in season two. I think another member of the Bad Batch has to die because I think at that point it's just too many characters to follow as like one group of people. Uh,
Yeah, I think that's a big cast. Like when you look, I had to open it for a sec. My background here on my computer is in the background the Bad Batch promo art, and all of these promo arts like contain Crosshair in the background. He's just kind of like
mm,
separated from the team. So I think they're definitely trying to, like Crosshair said this episode, like he's part of the Bad Batch too, and he felt abandoned by
mm,
them.
yeah,
So they made it a point to make it called the Bad Batch, and they're all part of the Bad Batch. So
yeah,
I would like to see him have some sort of redemption and be part of that team when he dies.
yeah. I could definitely see that of like the final. Do you think the final episode is going to be longer? I
I
mean,
think
not
it'll be a
super
bit
long.
longer. I'm not expecting it to be like a 2 hours or something, but I could see it being like a 45 or something.
Yeah, and I could see kind of like halfway through, maybe even the beginning of this episode, because the part of why he turned on the Bad Batch is he felt abandoned by them, and now he's clearly gonna feel abandoned by the Empire, and so I could see him immediately being kind of like, oh, I've made the wrong choice, and like flip over, and a better writing than him just immediately being like, oh, I screwed up, I'm back with you guys
Hmm.
now. I could see it being like a slow thing over like the course of the first 10 minutes of the episode, and then the last he's like with them and then sacrifices himself. But one of the things I think to me, as far as predicting how they get out of this, I think it's partially when you have to go back to the and remembering that this is a kid show, and with the like knowing now that there's tunnels underneath that Omega says stretches all across the planet. I'm pretty sure that's how they're gonna get out. So Omega's gonna be like, oh, there's a tunnel right here. We're just gonna go in there, and then everyone's gonna be like, okay, and then that's how they get out.
Yeah, that's probably the direction you made a good point. Usually, especially at a kids show, if there's an easy answer, is probably the answer.
Yeah.
So I think the fact that tunnels got mentioned a few times and even used is what they're gonna do. And I would love it if the tunnels led them to some kind of reveal. Like since it's the finale, it'd be a nice place to drop
Mm,
another big
yeah.
breadcrumb of whatever. You know, whether it's
Mm,
Snoke, whether it's anything else. I
yeah.
think the secret labs of Kamino could be a place to do it. But I think that's definitely the route they're gonna go. Omega will break them
Mm,
out and take them out through those tunnels. Even maybe Crosshair will will be guiding them to
mm,
some kind of escape route too. I could see that being what his way of turning. Like he'll help them escape Camino, and then die on the planet himself, something like that.
Yeah, I could see that. And one thing too is because we haven't brought up yet, they did announce that we're getting a season 2 in 2022 before this episode dropped, and I saw some takes online of people that I'm just like, I don't know what show you think you're watching, but I saw someone online being like, "Oh, well now I know they're definitely not going to have a Rogue One style ending where they all die one by one." I'm like, number one, that would make no sense for this show because either A, you're just gonna leave Omega all out on her own as like a little kid being like, well, good luck, have fun, and no idea what happens to her, or B, a kid is gonna die on a little kid show. Two, also, this is a kid show. They're not gonna just have, oh, you know all these heroes you've been following? Yep, they're all fucking dead now.
And
So
we still could get that ending, just not in season 1. You know,
yeah,
like if that's the
exactly.
way they want to go for Bad Batch, we can get that season 4 or whatever they do.
And honestly, if the Bad Batch were a big part of the Clone Wars and they were like in multiple arcs and were like kind of like Anakin's right hand team, I could understand that being the point of this show. But if they were just to die at the end of the next episode, I would be like, why did I watch this? There was 0 point really to. We saw a little bit of how the Empire switched from clones to regular troopers, but ultimately, like, what was the point of this show? That's why I could already tell that we're most likely getting a season 2. Not that I didn't enjoy it in season 1, not that I don't really like the show, but ultimately, if that's how this season ended, was they're all dead, I'd be like, there was 0 point to ever making this show.
Yeah, and I think Crosshair mentioned even in the episode, he said like you were meant for more than just wandering the galaxy, and I think
Yeah.
he means that as you have to join the Empire, but I think we'll see them taking that as you have to join the rebellion. And I
Yeah.
would imagine season 2 is they're no longer doing odd jobs for Sid, they're doing odd jobs for, whoever rebellion standing they use. If they're gonna do Mon Mothma, are they gonna
I want
use
I want someone like we haven't really seen a whole lot of. If they do that, I don't want it to be like, oh, we're working for Mon Mothma, or oh, we're working for Bail Organa. I kind of want it to be like, oh, we're working for like Jando Donna, or like another one of the more like random background ones, or like maybe a guy we've never seen before, because maybe he dies before A New Hope, and so we've just never seen him.
I would love to see them work for Saw Gerrera and they become like the
Oh, them working.
we know that we see Saw Gerrera become like the darker side of the rebellion essentially by the time Rebels comes along. So it'd be cool to see the Bad Batch
That would be
join that
sick.
side. So by the time we get to Rebels, we're like, oh, we have the Bad Batch on the Saw Gerrera side, unknowing to us, and on the Rebel side, we have the Rebel crew.
Yeah.
I would love to see Saw Gerrera come because he's been in the show already, so it would be a
Mm,
nice setup for him to come back. And they're since
yeah.
they're the Bad Batch, they can go a little bit darker than maybe the Rebels crew did, and be like, oh, we're doing kind of the outlaw stuff.
Yeah, I could see that. That'd be fun if they were working for. Like, I know I said I don't want them to work for a main one, but even a Saw Gerrera type, like, it doesn't necessarily have to be Saw Gerrera,
Yeah, yeah,
but
that's how I'm feeling. Somebody a little edgier than Mon
Hondo. They're
Mothma.
working for Hondo. We still haven't got a
Hondo is part of
Hondo.
the rebellion the
You're
whole
not
time.
a true Star Wars animated show until Hondo appears. So
We'll get Hondo. If we can't get Hondo, we had to get season 2 because we haven't gotten Hondo.
exactly.
So we gotta drag it out until Hondo comes.
All right. Anything else you got to say about this episode? Return to Kamino.
I was shocked to see Kamino destroyed.
Oh
I
yeah,
mean,
I
that's
forgot
the
about that
last shot
aspect.
of the
Yeah.
episode. But
Yeah.
we will get the resolution of that. But I mean, Kamino is a huge part of Star
Yeah.
Wars lore. It was all the way back to Attack of the Clones, and it's been prominent throughout Star Wars since then. People who hate the prequels still kind of were like, "Oh, that fight in Kamino was pretty cool." And
Yeah.
you talk about Battlefront and
Yeah. I
Battlefront
was
2,
gonna
like
say.
the Kamino maps were huge parts of that too. And when I was watching it destroyed, I was thinking like, "Man, I've ran on that little pledge right there. It's like a clone trooper in Battlefront 2, and now it's destroyed."
Yeah, I was gonna say the Camino maps were very beloved in Battlefront. I always hated them because everything looked the same and I always got lost. But, yeah, like it's kind of definitely the mark of the like true mark of the end of the Clone Wars era with Camino destroyed because clones are no more.
Yeah, and of course it gives you an explanation in the world of like how was this never discovered? Like why didn't Palpatine just go back to this or whatever? It's another little lore explanation for stuff. Like this is a moment in Star Wars history. Kamino is gone now.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to bring up too, I forgot about, was they were talking about that the clones are like shipped off and were sent somewhere. Do you think that's a storyline that's going to come back? Do you think it's something where it's like they're going to lead maybe a bunch of clones in like a last stand situation? Like they're going to find where all the clones were taken to and it's going to be like the last stand of the clones? Or do you think we're going to find out, yeah, that's not exactly true. They just kind of killed them all?
I think they're gonna bring him back some way. You wouldn't mention that if you weren't gonna bring him back. I think
Uh,
if you're gonna kill them all, you would have just had them be on Kamino and killed them all.
yeah. Yeah, I could
So
see
I think
that too.
they'll come back in some way, whether it's a clone rebellion, because we were theorizing like, oh, it's gonna be clone rebellion on Kamino, and the Empire's gonna destroy Kamino, and that's gonna be like the series finale.
Yeah.
And now Kamino's gone in the season one finale, and it wasn't a rebellion, so it's a nice loop on that
Yeah.
too. But yeah, I definitely think they'll come back, whether it's a rebellion or maybe the clones will become instrumental in taking down the Empire or founding the rebellion or something like that. I can see that there's something left for the clones. The clones are too big of a part of Star Wars to have all been wiped out off screen.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just trying to think like where the clones go. Like, is there something if like Rogue One wasn't made? I could be like, okay, like what if the Rebel spies were actually clones or something, right? I'm just trying to think like what's something that the clones could do as like a last like fight against the Empire to like lead to the thing that eventually leads to Luke blowing up the Death Star.
All I could think is they're like maybe they're working as laborers or something, and they have like a laborer
Mm.
rebellion, or maybe because my initial theory was, oh, maybe the Emperor took these guys and they're on Exegol and he's using them to
Oh,
experiment on cloning technology with the clones.
yeah,
But who knows with that? I'm just theorizing off of practically nothing at this
yeah,
point. But that's the fun of the show, where it's like they could go any direction. I never thought Kamino would be blown up in the season one finale, not in a rebellion, just destroyed. You know.
yeah, yeah. I could see that. All right, you ready to move on to Turner and Hooch?
I'll try my best.
All right, so I want to say last week I reviewed. I believe the episode was a good day to bark hard, but that could be wrong. I
That
don't
was what
know.
it was.
I had a glowing review of it because it was kind of a take on one of my favorite movies of all time, Die Hard, and I praised it enough that it got you to watch it. And so I want your quick thoughts on episode 2 of Turner and Hooch.
Yeah, going into last week, I had absolutely no intention of ever watching Turner and Hooch again in my life, and then you came on and said it was this really fun Die Hard tribute episode, and that it has all these cool references. And I said, oh, you know what? I'll give Turner and Hooch one more episode. And you know what? They got one more out of me, and that's pretty much all they're probably gonna get, unless you come in and you tell me there's another killer episode. Because I had a good time with this one. It was filled with a lot of fun references and all scenes right out of the movie and that kind of stuff. So it's what you described, and I had a really good time with it. And as an also a big fan of Die Hard, it was fun to see that come to life. And it was also a weird, like I haven't watched network TV in how many years with streaming, so I haven't seen a lot of these like cheesy tribute episodes where it's like, oh, here's a Christmas special for the season, and this feels like a interesting kind of throwback to like network TV where it's like, oh, we're gonna do the Die Hard episode. And it's just gonna be a bunch of like Die Hard references for the whole episode.
Yeah.
So I think it was fun. I had a good time with it, but did not exactly pull me back into Turner and Hooch as a fan of the whole show or anything like that.
Yeah, I didn't think it would. I just thought like you might get a kick out. Honestly, I was expecting you to come in here and be like, Joe, you're a crazy person. That episode sucked.
I mean, it was a lot of fun. It sucked in the same way that all those network specials suck. Like you're not getting a good episode, but you're getting a Die Hard tribute with Josh Peck.
Yeah.
So what else can you really want?
Yeah, and you're my age too, so you grew up with all that and the Amanda Show and Drake and Josh and all those shows. We watched Josh Peck grow up. If you like growing up when I was like 10, 11 years old, if you showed me a picture of the poster of Turner and Hooch and blurred out Josh Peck's name and asked me who that was, there is no way I would have been able to tell you that that was Josh Peck.
Yeah, you call me during the Amanda show and you say, "Hey, that guy right there, he's gonna be like a cop character, and he's gonna be like fit and hot while he's doing it." And I
Yeah,
would be like, "That's impossible."
exactly. Um,
It makes me want to watch the show just to like support Josh Peck's life transformation.
yeah.
I'm like, "Good job, man. You look
Like,
good."
and the thing is, he's been skinny for like 10 years. He just hasn't really been doing a whole lot. Because he, like, started to get skinny towards the tail end of Drake and Josh. And, which was, like, way too long ago that I don't want to think about because I'm just going to feel old.
Yeah,
But,
that'll be a crisis.
yeah, but back to this week's episode. This week's episode, do you know the title of it?
Do not know.
The title of the episode was Diamonds Are Forever.
Is it a James Bond tribute episode?
Thought it would be. I'll be honest though, because the Die Hard tribute was like pretty subtle. Like if you didn't watch Die Hard and don't know anything about Die Hard, I think they were subtle enough that you wouldn't realize the references are references to anything. And so I'm not a big James Bond guy. I haven't seen the Diamonds Are Forever movie. So there could have been, but they weren't overt enough to me to ever be like, oh, that was a James Bond reference. There were small things, like his nephew was working on a science project and it was a volcano, and I don't know if maybe the villain had a volcano lair base in Diamonds Are Forever. Um, but yeah, so basically the plot of the episode was there's this woman and she's a jewel thief and they're trying to track her and they can't find her and they like Scott Turner, played by Josh Peck, is trying to use Hooch to like smell and track her, but Hooch doesn't want to like listen, and it's a whole thing. And then you find out, oh, Hooch could listen, but she's using a double. So, spoiler
Wow.
alert. So that's why he couldn't use her scent because it was a different person. Um, Episode was solid, equal quality of the first two. I think, like I've said before, if you are a fan of like NCIS and CSI, but think those shows are slightly too dark for maybe the children in your lives, but you want to watch that kind of show, I feel like Turner and Hooch has that nice balance that you can.
That's what I got. At least for the first two episodes, I think that's a good fit. I have a few family members who are super into cop shows, and I think this is one that they'd have a good time with. It doesn't have like the darkness like you mentioned. Sometimes stuff like SVU, of course, can get very dark, and that can be a little draining to watch. So if you just want like a fun, heartfelt cop show, it's certainly not bad,
Yeah,
but it's just not necessarily what I would watch. But yeah, that's what I got. A heartfelt
yeah,
cop show.
yeah.
For once, it's not about how terrible everything is.
It's a good family show. There's the whole dynamic with the canine trainer of like she's into him, but he's Josh Peck's character Scott Turner is super oblivious, and then you have there's kind of like a case of the week, but there's this overarching thing that their dad was like working on this big massive case before he died, and their Josh Peck's character and his sister are like slowly trying to piece it together and figure it out. But I was looking up, trying to remember what next week's episode was titled because I saw like a preview. I didn't see the preview, but I saw that there was one and I saw the title. I want to just run by you the next three episodes because as a fan of puns, they are all amazing.
Give it to me.
We have so the first one was just Forever and a Dog, which I don't know if that was a pun on anything.
Probably was.
We have it was a good day to dog hard. I was saying it was a good day to bark hard. A good day to dog hard, and then obviously this one was Diamonds Are Forever. The next one in the line of fur. Then we have Road to Smell Dorado.
So good.
And then episode 6 is The Furgitive. So a lot of fur puns going on.
A lot of fur, you know. We gotta get into the barks. You gotta get into the pets. You have a lot of dog words you can use. You know, you got a
Uh,
few seasons out of this, so you can squeeze
yeah,
them out.
yeah. There apparently there's 12 episodes this season, but yeah, like I said, that was kind of where the show lives. It's nice family cop show that I think anyone, a kid of any age, can really watch this. But I think a 5-year-old outside of it's a dog is gonna probably be bored of this show because I think it's like gonna be a little over their head. But
It might be one that I watch as we get into these desperate months of Disney Plus coming up. But yeah, I'm glad you're liking it, Joe. Not
I'm not
necessarily.
saying I'm liking it, but I watched it while I drove home from my friend's house today. It was on my phone, and I just so that's also why I might have missed any James Bond because I was like half paying attention to it, which is a perfect show for that. You can kind of half pay attention to.
If you want something like that too, I've been keeping up with Mysterious Benedict Society. I don't have
Yeah,
much to say on it right now, but I'm gonna probably finish out the season and then give some season thoughts on it when I get to the end.
yeah, that's the only reason I really gave Turner and Hooch an episode review is because there's really not a lot to talk about right now. I think the thing is when Marvel's What If starts, Bad Batch will kind of be over, so we might still be sticking with Turner and Hooch unless something else pops up. But yeah, without I don't really have anything else to say about
I've
that.
got oh yeah, no, that's all I got to say about Turner and Hooch.
Oh
One
yeah,
day I'll get back to it, Joe, when I'm desperate, but not now.
yeah, yeah. Not a show I'm telling people to run out and watch, but it has its moments. Ready to move on to Short Circuit, the Disney kind of animation studio project?
I
Not
am. I had a
not the
good time.
movie about the robot.
No, that's not the one we're talking about. But yeah, I'm ready to talk about Short Circuit, the anthology series on Disney Plus.
All right, I will say I watched the first episode called Puddles, but I will let you take over the conversation because you saw more of it than I did.
Yeah, if you're not aware, Short Circuit is a Disney Plus series. It's all a bunch of shorts made by Disney animators. So the premise is like if you're working at Disney, you're working in the animation, and you have this idea for a short film, you can pitch it to the Disney team, and then they'll give you the chance to direct this 2 3 minute animated short to go on Disney Plus. So the format of it is you get like this 1 2 minute interview at the start where they have the animator come on and talk about their idea, talk about their goals, talk about the style they use, that kind of thing, and then they'll show you the short. It's 2 or 3 minute, maybe 4 minute short, and so it's a quick binge episodes. The episodes are like 5 to 7 minutes, maybe shorter some of them, and it's an easy binge. I watched all the episodes on there, and at the end I'll give you a couple recommendations that I thought were the better of the episodes. But yeah, they're all really unique animation style, which is something that I liked a lot about it. They're not all in the typical Disney or typical Pixar animation style. Some of them are very abstract and very different. One that I noticed was there's one that's about street art where all the animation is done in sort of like this graffiti style. There's one that's about a samurai, and then all of the animation is done in this sort of like Japanese brushstroke kind of look to it that I really liked. So if you like animation, I definitely recommend watching this because you're going to get a wide variety, whether it's colorful silent films, whether it's really dialogue heavy, whether it's a heartfelt movie about a girl going on a bus and smiling at someone during the day, or whether it's a movie about a raindrop falling from the sky and you follow his moments of life from beginning to end in like these couple seconds that the raindrop gets to be alive. So there's a really strong variety. I had a great time with it. Honestly, it's one of the best things I've watched on Disney Plus in a while. It's an easy binge too. You can watch it all in like an hour. So I just sat and binged the whole all 1.5 seasons because season 2 is currently airing, I think, week to week on Disney Plus right now. But yeah, I'll mention a few that I thought were good. I took down 5 here that I thought were worth noting out of like 15 or so that are on there right now.
All right.
The first is season 1, episode 9. It's called Downtown. The one I mentioned earlier is kind of like a street art look to it. So you follow this sort of nondescript. The world that you're in is sort of dark and shadowy, but then he walks and sees this really gorgeous street art. The street art kind of like comes to life and sucks him into it, and he comes into this like colorful graffiti world. And the director mentioned how she moved to LA and she was really stressed and worrying about her finances and her career. And when she'd walk out of her apartment, she'd see these big graffiti murals on the walls, and that would be kind of like what would inspire her to get up and go to work every day. And she tried to capture that feeling in this episode Downtown. Her name was Kendra Vanderbilt. I think some of these directors might be ones you'd see in some future Disney movies. Like if they're Pixar, especially does a good job at like taking people who've made like one short and being like, here's a feature. So these might be names you hear later. Another one is Jinghua, I think is how you pronounce it. Season 1, episode 10. I mentioned that one as well. It's about a kung fu master who's sort of grieving. Well, it's a trainer who's grieving the death of her master, and she's doing like an acrobatic kind of training, and through that is expressing her emotions of her grief, and all of the animation is done in a brushstroke kind of style. So if you like that style, I think you'd like that a lot. And if you also like Japanese samurai movies, you like that a lot too. I also liked Going Home, season 2, episode 2. You follow the director mentioned how he moved from a different country to the United States to work here in animation. So every time he goes home, it's a rarity, and he's kind of shocked to see how much the city's changed, people have changed around him, and it's like this reminder of how he's aging and time is passing him by. So you get this guy returning to his hometown, walking from the train station to his house to greet his parents. Simple as that, but with each cut, it ages a little bit. So like you'll get him arriving in the fall, kind of young, looking happy, and then the next shot will be winter, and he'll be a little bit older, and something will change. Maybe a building is gone that was there before, something like that, and it gradually gets more and more emotional. Of course, he's getting to his parents' house, and with each cut, his parents are aging. So you're seeing his parents go from these young people that he looks up to as like these undefeatable people, and then slowly but surely, of course, become old and frail. And I think that's a really strong emotional journey. So I definitely recommend Going Home. And the last one I have on here is not a heartbreaker. It's actually just a really fun, goofy one called Dinosaur Barbarian. It's I don't know how you describe it. Like it's sort of 2D. It's all hand drawn. So if you like 2D animation style of Disney, you'd like this. And it's kind of a throwback to like adventure serial kind of looks. And the premise is that it's an opening titles for an animated cartoon called Dinosaur Barbarian, and it's about a barbarian who was living in dinosaur times, and then like discovers he can take a shower, and he discovers he can eat good food, and discovers like he has this like he has this arc through the opening credits of going from a barbarian to like this civilized man. So I think it's a good fun animation style, and if you like 2D animation or you have throwbacks to like those 80s cartoons, it gave me like Masters of the Universe kind of vibes. So if you have fun with that, the good version of Masters of the Universe, not the new one, I think you'd like Dinosaur Barbarian. But yeah, those are just some that I liked, and like I said, they're so different that there's probably plenty you would like and watch that I didn't
Yeah.
necessarily connect to. So I'd like to, if you guys watch it, let me know what you thought because I had a great time with all these really.
Yeah, like I said, I watched the first one, Puddles, because I didn't have a whole lot of time, and then you had texted me you were watching it, so I decided to at least check out one episode, so I kind of had an idea. I really like that. I kind of like the idea too. Instead of just like, oh, here's all the shorts, they have the director kind of talk in the beginning for a minute, just like what their inspiration was for it. I like that aspect of it. I thought that was good. Oh, I watched. I did watch two. I watched the first one and then I watched the second one. And the second one was a really cool concept. It was kind of about a new kid in class, and it was essentially this little like human girl uh, going to like an alien school. And so it was kind of like the idea of being the first kid in class, but like that next level of like you're going to a school on literally a foreign planet, which to like I guess a young kid going to a different school, that's kind of what that could feel like. So I like that one as well. Puddles was just like these two kids going into like this weird alternate dimension through puddles.
Yeah, Puddles was not my favorite of all of them.
Yeah.
Probably the weakest I would say of the series, but good animation. All these
Mm.
have really strong animation.
Yeah. Puddles was one where I feel like the story was just starting and then it ended.
Hmm.
Like I would have liked them to like take 5 seconds with the puddles and then go to in the new world and then explore that world, but instead it's like, oh, we're in the new world and the short's over.
Yeah, I liked Short Circuit. I wonder if someday we'll get a like in season 3 or 4 or something. We'll get like sequels. Maybe
Yeah.
Puddles 2. Here they are in the
Yeah.
puddle world.
Yeah, it'd be kind of cool too if like one of them was like, yeah, we really like this concept and people responded to it well, so we just turned it into like a feature.
Yeah, and that's what I'm looking for. Like, I don't know if any of these will be feature length, but I think at least a few of these
Mm.
directors will be ones that come
Yeah.
back into prominence at Disney.
Oh, for
Especially
sure.
some of these are really uh, jaw dropping for new animators. Not new animators, but new in terms of
Mm.
directing.
Yeah.
So I'd be excited to see some of these people come back into the forefront.
Yeah, I definitely feel like a lot of this is like auditions essentially.
Hmm.
It's like a way for them to hold auditions while still like making content and making money, being like, oh, like we're kind of holding auditions for people to direct upcoming features, and then we're just gonna essentially have like an unofficial contest where you all make short films, and then we'll just put the short films on Disney Plus because Disney Plus needs content. Is essentially what I feel like this show is.
That's pretty much what it is. But they, rather than just making it feel half-assed, they do bring in really good animators,
Yeah.
people who've worked on like Little Mermaid and some of the Disney classics, and really like put the effort in. And I didn't
Mm.
expect this to be such a high-effort production, but it was.
Yeah, yeah, I'm really into it. I'm definitely gonna watch the rest of this. A lot of these shows that I'm like, I might watch more. I kind of haven't. Like Turning the Tables with Robin Roberts, haven't really gone back to it. Behind the Attraction, haven't really gone back to it.
I finished that one.
Yeah, I think I only had like 2 episodes left, and I think it was like two rides I didn't really care about, so haven't really gone back. But if you're a big fan of Disney and Disney rides, like obviously you're gonna be into Behind the Attraction. But when it's rides you've never really ridden before, it's hard to be like, you know what I really want to watch right now? A documentary about a ride I've never ridden.
Yeah.
Uh, but you have anything more to say about Short Circuit, or do you want to move
No,
on to?
great time. I don't got much else to say. It's all short, so not a ton to talk about, but it was good.
All right, and the next two things I have on my list are kind of one and the same because the last one was more to help theorize around. So basically, I have Marvel Studios' What If, and then also Marvel Studios' Legends. If we just want to talk about that real quick, did you watch the promo that dropped? The Steve promo for Marvel Studios' What If?
I didn't see it. No, I haven't been. I watched the trailers, but typically I avoid a lot of the other stuff because already gonna watch it, so I try
Mm.
to avoid watching stuff.
Well, I'm a spoil a clip for you.
Go ahead.
So, it's Peggy Carter, who I think is Captain Carter at this point, and she's with Dum Dum Dugan, who you might remember from Captain America: The First Avenger, and then I think she's with Bucky. I don't know. The whole clip's 41 seconds, and I guess in this what if it's you have Captain Carter is essentially Captain America, and Steve like rolls up in an Ironmonger looking Iron Man suit. So I think it's going to be Peggy Carter is essentially Captain America, and Steve becomes Iron Man.
That's really cool.
And
Yeah,
like
because I
that's
didn't.
how he fights because he's still like a small little scrappy dude like he was at the beginning of Captain America. So
I like that a lot. I was curious how much they're gonna bring in other characters, how much this is gonna be like standalone stuff, and it sounds like it's an actual like story arc.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see that too. What if is something that I have a lot of excitement for.
Yeah, I think it premieres next this upcoming Wednesday. So we'll have so yeah, Wednesday, I think. I'm curious, have they announced like how long these episodes are going to be? Like I think they said they're dropping the first 3 this upcoming Wednesday, but do you think they're all going to I imagine if I had to guess they're all going to be in like the 20 to 25-minute range, but is there like a chance that they're like, "Oh yeah, these are all like 10 minutes?"
I don't know if they're all gonna be 10 minutes, but that's a possibility. Because I was leaning your direction too. I was thinking like 20, 25, like maybe 30 for like a
Mhm.
finale or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was thinking around the 20 marks. But you could see it like you could see like 8 minute ones.
Mm.
Like I don't know what to expect from this show at all, which is interesting for me. Like I know the premise of it, of course, but they told us very little. We don't even, like you said, we don't even know the lengths of the episodes. We don't. I don't even know if we know how many of the episodes are in the season.
Yeah.
I'm really excited to just get see what this is actually going to be because it went from something where I was like, oh, that's going to be like some random animated show that might be worth talking about, but not anything uh groundbreaking. But it seems like more and more it's going to be like canon
Yeah,
MCU.
that's
Like,
what they've said. Like these are all canon, like multiverses in the
mm-hmm.
MCU. So like, there's a chance. The one example I was gonna say definitely won't happen. I was gonna say there's a chance we could see T'Challa Ravager version pop up in the MCU, but that's not happening, and now I'm a
Oof.
little sad. But we could potentially see like Captain Carter show up in like Captain America 4.
Yeah, and I could even see like something where a universe pops up in What If, and then it comes back up again. Maybe not the character itself, but for
Yeah.
example, I don't think this is what's going to happen, but if in a What If episode we got to like the Raimi verse for a couple of scenes, and it was like, oh shit, Raimi verse is real, and then like in Spider-Man it comes to fruition.
Yeah. What if there's a moment where we just see a guy in a wheelchair turn around in like the final episode of What If, and it's Professor X and it's voiced by like Jeremy Irons or something, and they're like, "Oh yeah, this is the X-Men universe."
That would be awesome. Like that would be such a moment because it would be like a mic drop in this random animated show. You're gonna like actually have major MCU reveals, and I wouldn't put it past them. After Loki, I'm like, dang, maybe they really will do big stuff with these shows.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm very curious because, and one of the things I just want to talk about because they said the first 3, and then they did the Marvel Studios Legends. It's kind of either they'll do it like before a season or like after a show drops. And so the Marvel Studios Legends that they just dropped on the 4th, the first one is Peggy Carter, the second one was just the Avengers, and then the third one was the Ravagers. So I have to guess the 3 episodes we're gonna get is a Captain Carter focused one, an Avengers focused one, and then my guess is the other one will be the T'Challa is Star Lord one. Which
That's
I'm
gonna be a
curious how that's
heartbreaker.
gonna work. I'm curious how they're going. Like, is T'Challa was he just abducted by the Ravagers for no reason, or is in this universe he instead of being the son of T'Chaka, he's the son of Ego?
Yeah, I can't wait to see how they're gonna set up these premises, and it's obviously gonna be a powerful experience
Yeah,
to see Boseman's. Of course, you're only hearing it, but
yeah,
what became his final performance as an actor
yeah,
and also as Black Panther. But it's gonna be essentially the last time we see that character, I would think, and the
yeah,
last time we get to hear
yeah.
Chadwick Boseman perform something.
Yeah, it's gonna be a sad watch.
Yeah, bittersweet. It'll be very nice to see him again, and it'll
Yeah,
be nice to get that character one last time. But of course, it'll have an added element of sadness because it's the last time he will. And unfortunately, I think that will hang a bit over at least the premiere of this show. I think that's what people are all going to be talking about is that, and then any kind of like multiverse level reveal stuff will be something we talk about like later on. Because
yeah,
I think the highlight of the conversation is going to be everyone coming together to see Chadwick Boseman one last time.
yeah. That's definitely gonna be a fun watch. Like the whole series is, I think, gonna be fun, an interesting and new take on the MCU. Gonna be the MCU branching out, pun intended. Um,
Lots of branching.
yeah. Anything else you want to say about What If? Oh, they we do are get we are getting a Marvel Zombies
I
episode.
saw
Isn't
that in the
that?
trailer. That would be awesome. That's what I'm really excited for. Is Marvel finally able to like let go of the shackles of having to be like this realistic boots on the ground superhero stuff they're trying to be
Mm-hmm.
for so long? And I think Avengers Endgame essentially is like the finale of the serious superhero essentially. Like
Yeah.
now we're finally able, now that we've like as a culture taken it seriously, I think we're finally able to get to like this
Yeah.
point where you can do Suicide Squad and to be like completely insane, and you can do What If and
Mm.
just completely dive into the multiverse insanity, and this people are going to be able to follow it. People are already into this. You don't need to like slowly walk us past each step anymore because we're already there. We're
Yeah.
already in.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited. I hope What If is a sign that Marvel is getting more and more creative with their stuff, and I hope that it actually is creative and isn't
Yep.
just on the face of it creative.
Yeah. I get that. Anything else you got to say about this week in Disney Plus, or?
No, good week. I'm excited for next week. Of course, we're gonna have the finale of Bad Batch to talk about, and then I think you said What If was also next Wednesday,
Yeah. What
right? Or
if
is that?
is a? Yeah, it's the 12th. So yeah, that's next
So we're
next.
gonna have a crowded week next week
Yeah.
for one Friday week.
Probably not going to talk about Turner and Hooch as much, but I don't know what else there will be to talk about but those three things. So probably be heavy with Bad Batch and What If though. But yeah.
Yeah, the finale of Mysterious Benedict Society also aired this week, so I could always do a review of that series
Uh,
too.
all right. What do you give that show if you were to like grade it?
Like it's a solid like B minus
Okay.
or like a C plus. Like it's
Oh,
in that range of like solid. Not something that really blew me away, but I'm sure if I watched it and I was in the right age demographic, I would have loved this kind of thing. You know, it
all
seems
right.
like that kind of thing for me. Where if I was a kid and I watched this, it would have checked all the boxes of like what Tristan Kid liked.
All right. All right. Without further ado, I think that wraps up our show. I'm about to go watch Suicide Squad because I've had a busy Friday and Saturday, so I haven't been able to watch it yet. So I'm gonna crank up HBO Max and see what that movie's about. Um, Enjoy the rest of your Saturday and Sunday and rest of your weekend. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and all that fun stuff. Have a nice night.